8, right?
Okay,
We
we're going.
we're recording.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Athena. So let's call to order. We haven't been able to meet in a little while, but I'm glad we're together. Our outreach subcommittee meeting. Let's just do the formality. And who's present? Meg,
Present.
Raphael,
Here.
and I am here also, Erica. So we have a brief agenda. I
What a
would like
big one.
I'd like to discuss sort of how to weight that agenda, given how much we have to think about and how much has been delegated to us. Um, I just wanted to say that for the last couple of meetings, Meg has asked, could we have some brief introductions in our subcommittee group? And we tried to have that on our agenda, but we weren't able to meet the last time. So we have a lot to get to, so I don't want to spend too much time, but maybe we could do just like a 1-minute intro, just to check that box.
What are we
Thank you.
checking in the intro? What do you
Just-
want us to share?
Well, what shall I say? My idea
Yes,
was
please.
that we're doing this serious work, and
Yeah.
we don't, it's sort of astonishing
Mm-hmm.
that we've never met before. We don't know anything about each other.
Mm-hmm.
And you say these, these little snippets come up like, oh, I'm teaching my class at Clark that time. And I'm like, oh, I wonder what he teaches. So it's just a chance to
Okay.
briefly introduce ourselves, who we are, what, I don't know. It's just, I've never worked with a group where I didn't know anything about anybody.
Yeah. So Meg, you'd like to know details, professional? What do you want to know?
Anything,
Anything. Okay. I like
like
that.
where you live or
Mhm.
who you, what, anything,
Okay.
what you care about. Just,
In 1 minute. Okay, great.
I'm going to get my timer out.
Just so that, because we could probably have a half-hour chat about each of us, but let's keep it brief so we can get to the but I think it has some value to know each other and our background and where we're coming from. So Meg, do you want to start?
Sure, and I'm going to push the stopwatch because I could go on. I am retired from a 35-year career in national philanthropy. I taught high school here and there for several years, including at Amherst High. I'm a graduate of Amherst High. My kids went to Amherst High, so and I got involved in the peace movement. I was very frustrated that philanthropy didn't ever find any money for grassroots and community groups. So I started the Peace Development Fund and then quickly realized that we weren't going to deal with that if we didn't deal with, it's my phone ringing. I'm just going to block it. I'm not going to look at who it is. Oops, I just lost 6 seconds. If we didn't deal with money in politics, so I started another fund called the Proteus Fund. And we were an intermediary between large foundations and donors and a variety of democracy campaigns. I'll give you just one example, but there were many. We organized all the money to states for the marriage equality movement. And so I became known as sort of strategic in getting big foundation money kind of out. We had a staff of 15 that traveled all around the states. I have 2 kids. I'm retired. That's about a minute. I could tell you that, I've been involved in Amherst stuff a long time and it's sort of too much, but that's my career side.
That's great. It's good to know that about you. Raphael, should I go?
I could. You want to go, or do you want me to go? Your call.
You go ahead. Go ahead.
As a chair. So thanks for being involved in Amherst stuff, Meg. Well, a little bit of Amherst stuff, I guess. But I'm actually from the Caribbean, from this island called St. Thomas. I live in Amherst with my wife. We raised a daughter here. My wife's from the Dominican Republic. I'm a professor, a lawyer. We've been here for over 20 years. Also taught at the high school years ago. But now I teach at Clark. I'm in the ed department. I do a lot of work around equity, ed matters. So I have quite the commute, but I love the work that I do. I'm on a few committees in town, so some Amherst stuff, but important to contribute help out, connect with folks. I think
Where
that's
do you
less.
live?
I live in South Amherst.
And I live in North Amherst.
Okay. Yeah. So that's my intro. I don't know if I did a minute less. Not
I
sure.
don't know.
That
Yeah,
was good.
great.
My intro. I have lived in Amherst about 7 years. And before that, I lived in Vermont. Before that, I lived in Philadelphia. And before that, I lived in a whole bunch of places that will take me over a minute to list. Um, I My family's originally from Argentina, and that's another kind of long story. Professionally, I had a whole career as a media maker, filmmaking, video, digital stuff, and also teaching it, media making, and also media studies and courses on media and democracy and that sort of thing. I was taught at Temple University in Philly and at Bennington College for many years. Both sort of things like documentary production and like I said, the more media history and technology and that's media and society, that kind of thing. Um, I also, for a long while, had a production company, and we did things like
Huh.
documentary production for nonprofits and, excuse me, and we did some animation projects as well. And yeah, and right now I work for a nonprofit that is not media related, but that supports sort of science and tech um, uh, innovators in trying to get their inventions from the lab to the marketplace. And so, yeah, producing and that kind of thing is my
Oh,
lane.
Nice.
oh.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law is Rob Epstein, who's a documentary maker who made Word Is Out, Life and Times of Harvey Milk,
Uh-huh.
AIDS Quilt,
Yeah.
just Linda Ronstadt movie too. That was good. Anyway, neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So it's great. There's lots of overlap, and you can kind
Yeah.
of tell that from our previous conversations in a
I
constructive
thought it
way.
was interesting. We don't have any observers. I don't know if this is being recorded. I don't care.
We are
That
recorded.
the three people who volunteered to be on the outreach subcommittee are the two women and the one person of color on the larger committee. Nobody else raised their hand. Well, Julian did. Anyway, just saying. I just
Driving forward.
Gonna take that in. Gonna
check.
take that in.
You don't have to, yeah, we don't have to. I'm just observing.
Yeah. I hear
We
that.
don't have any observers, I see.
No, I don't think we do. So I will skip over asking for public comment, but thanks for doing the introductions. That was good.
Thank you.
Do we have any announcements other than what we have already on the agenda? Is anything that we don't know about from either of you? I don't have anything new. I'm just going to jump in. One piece of business that I want to address, maybe shift out of order. We had on the agenda number 8, approval of minutes. So we have not made a proper plan or engaged in the activity of taking minutes on our meetings. We need to do that as part of being a public subcommittee. This is our 3rd meeting, I think, as a group.
Yeah.
These meetings have been recorded, so we're going to have to go back and reconstruct what we can from that. And then we can just rotate.
Yeah. I'll
Okay.
go back in and deal with the first. We had 3.
I think this is our 3rd, and if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, we can verify that, but I think this is our 3rd. Meg, you
Yeah.
had your hand up.
I'll do one of them, but I'm going out of the country on Monday for 2 weeks, so I probably can't do it, but I wondered if we could agree that the minutes will be decisions, things we agree to come back to, or
We do
topics
not,
where,
we don't need to transcribe. I think what we need
No.
to do is hit hit the main
really
essence of
like,
the
and it
discussion
can be an
topic.
outline.
Yeah. And
Because,
the recordings are going to be around to support that.
right,
So,
exactly. The purpose of the recording is if somebody wants that, but it's undoable for me to do transcription type minutes.
yeah,
I
okay.
can't, I don't have that kind of time.
We don't, and we
Yeah,
don't need,
good.
in my
Good.
opinion, we don't need to do that. So Raphael, you offered to do the first one,
Yeah.
our first meeting, and I will seek out the second meeting since Meg, well, unless Meg, you can do it before you go out of town, and then I will do minutes for this meeting.
I'd rather do this meeting and starting right now,
Okay,
um,
Right.
because, and you can decide if these are too spare.
that's fine. Okay, so
Uh,
then I will go back and do our second meeting.
Is
which
that
was
okay?
about- yeah, which was about 3 weeks ago, I think. I'll find it.
It was probably a multiple of 2, right? 4.
Weeks ago, yes. Yeah, you're right. Okay. So we have on our agenda the public event timeline that I brought forward, and then we had some discussion about in our last meeting. And I just wanted to repeat that that was a piece of work that I created. I did not put it in the packet. I wanted to just have it available to propose it to the committee, but it's not like an official product of the committee yet. So I wanted to put that back out on the table and have our discussion about it.
Right.
And we have a separate agenda item I put on here, public event proposals, because I feel like I would like to use our time to come up with some concrete proposals for what kind of events or sort of invitations for public events we are creating and when. A proposal for the larger committee to then vote on. And if we can think about it as a proposal, then we can put it to them. We also had on our list the venues list that Meg had been working on,
Yeah, I've got to give a report on that.
and the interview protocol for the town officials, which we had a kind of long discussion about at the end of our large committee meeting.
Right.
And I put it on the agenda because I had the sense that the larger committee would accept a proposal from our side about tools and process if we kind of put that concretely in writing to bring forward for discussion. After having heard lots of different opinions and so on that night. So those are our, go ahead.
We were asked to focus on the survey. And there are 2 things that I had put on the agenda for our last 2 meetings of the full committee, once and then again, and both times we didn't get to it. So I have a high level of frustration. So I'd like to at least, I don't mind if doing it 48 hours, not known 48 hours, but at the last meeting, Julian said the subcommittee can take that up since it's a proposal that's related to the survey. Something to make us, that I'm actually willing to volunteer to do, but I haven't had a chance to.
So before we dive into our actual agenda items, can you just outline
Sure.
what that issue was?
So what this is that my feeling is that having at least 7 or 8 people have called me with their input, and let me start over. I feel that asking broad questions, people need prompts in order to respond to the survey well. And my proposal is that we write and somehow embed at the beginning of the survey, probably one side of a sheet of paper that says, here are the kinds of things that can be changed about our government. There are 4 ways. One is, I don't have the words in front of me, but one is just by practice, the way the decisions of how we function, like how we use Zoom, the degree of anonymity versus transparency, things like that. It would give some specific examples. Then it would be things that the council can change. And the third would be things that can only be changed by a decision by the state legislature. And the fourth would be a brand new charter commission. because people are very, very confused about, and we had at least 2 extremely long discussions with Dan about what can be discussed and what can't, and what, we just need to lay it out and say these, so because people need prompts in order to think, oh yeah, I really think there should be some people on the committees who aren't just council members because they don't ever have any new perspective. And someone else, that's, so to give an example, that's something the council could change. They could have committees with maybe one person who's not from the council who brings some level of expertise about the subject of that committee. Because there are committees, I mean, one person called me up furious because it was about a proposal that this committee took a League of Women Voters, a energy bylaw or something, a year of study, and nobody on the committee or on the council knew enough about it. It just got back and forth. Nobody ever, it was never, still hasn't been dealt with. It was a specific proposal about something related to environmental issues that, because the committees don't, I'm going into one thing that I've heard a lot about lately, but my point is that if we have a simple thing that says very neutral, non-biased, here are the things that can be changed by just decide to do it differently. Here are the things the council could change, etc. It would prompt people to think of things that they would like to speak about or comment on.
So to be
And
clear,
I'll offer to write it.
you're suggesting that these things appear where? These
It's some
outlines?
kind of prologue to the beginning, introduction to the survey. So we've prepared a survey, and to help you think about responding to it, here's how different categories of how things can be changed. It just puts to bed that whole issue Dan had, and it just says, look, there's this, there's that, there's this, there's that. And it would also prompt people, because I think we all agree that questions like, what do you like about our government? People don't know what that means. Or if
Okay.
somebody wants a mayor instead of a town manager, it would be helpful for them to know, is that a big change or a small change? I mean, there's some people who don't think we should even discuss that because it would have to go to the state legislature, I think. But I'm just think people, in the conversations I've had, I've discovered that people need some prompting to see what the categories of change are. So just be simple, 4 little categories, some examples to embed in some kind of a part of the survey or the introduction or something that comes along attached to the survey. So people get
Okay.
reminded.
Got it. So we would be proposing that there would be some language attached to the introductory portion of a survey, or in the context of a survey that we're inviting the public to participate in.
Right.
That's what you're proposing.
And I'm offering to draft it, but I haven't gotten anybody saying, it hasn't even been discussed yet. And this is based, as I said, on my experience of listening to people, and people either have very specific ideas of what they want or they don't have a clue. So
Okay.
to try to bring people up to the level
Yeah,
of those
I
who are
think,
knowledgeable, so that, yeah.
so can I pause that for 1 second and
Sure.
let's just try to give a frame to the conversation we need to have about the survey itself. And what I interpreted from the end of our committee meeting was that we were going to seek out support and consultation from the Collins Center as part of our new relationship with them on the design and implementation of a survey. Am I the only one that got that?
Yeah, that was my understanding as well.
Me too, but
Okay.
since then we met with them and they didn't offer to do that, and they're only gonna, that's not part of their scope of work.
Okay, I must have missed that.
Yeah, same here. Who's the
Where was
weed?
that? Where was that?
Well, they sent, at the last meeting, they sent the scope of work, and we discussed it. Was it the last meeting? And they're not going to start until mid-March, which it is now. They're going to only meet with us 5 times in the whole process. It was I don't have it in front of me, but it was a piece that was
proposal. I thought a proposal that was in
the materials.
the materials in the meeting.
Right.
Did something develop after that?
No,
Okay,
I just didn't,
So,
it's,
so my
is,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, I just didn't see survey in there and it was much, quite limited, but we should find that out if we have different memories.
My read isn't that it was limited, and they're meeting with us 5 times, but they also wrote about the scope of their work. And they noted, I think there's somewhere that deals with surveys. If you feel, Meg, like that's not within the scope of their work, we should definitely double check. But I read it as
Okay,
that it is. And I think this committee definitely could benefit from some examples and guidance around survey
right.
creation when it comes to this process.
But do you
okay.
want me to
So
find
can
out?
can I
Go
say
ahead,
one
sorry.
thing? At the
course.
end of the last committee meeting, what I understood was we voted, we approved the proposal for the relationship and the money to be put, right? And then that takes some time to be put into place.
Right,
In terms of seeking information and getting them started on this piece of work, I'm kind of waiting to hear that we've got signed contracts before I can,
uh-huh,
on behalf of our small group or anything, kind of approach them to actually do a piece of work. But I can do that before our next meeting, for sure, if the contract is, if we have a green light.
Should we find out, though, whether the survey is part of what's possible?
I will find that
You
out. That's
will.
what I'm saying.
Okay, good.
I will find out whether it's possible, and then I will initiate a contact, assuming that it is possible, to see what first steps would be.
Okay, good. Thank you. Somebody, for the notes, Erica will find out whether we can do it and we'll. Got it.
Meg, do you mind if I share a point connected to, or Erica, do you mind if I share a point to?
Not at all.
So I think like my stance on this, there are some who feel like they have to, I get it in terms of guiding and pointing people towards parts of the charter, but I also think like the spirit of this is to engage people in engaging with said charter and them sort of like giving us their perspective on the parts of this charter that matter to them. I think it'll be good to hear from the Collins Center, but I just think like trying to assume like what we should focus on is tricky. Does that make sense or no?
It does make sense. And is there, do you have a specific sort of process recommendation about this, like the sequence of events in terms of assembling the survey or consulting with experts or doing public events? Like how does what your comment just now, does that influence how you think those things should unfold in sequence?
It does. I think it would be great if we have help from the Collins Center in terms of what said survey looks like. But I think there are other materials in play to do some sort of community engagement around we exist and this is the work. We talked about drafting a visual, right? And to me, there are other committees that have that. Like Cambridge has one that says, like after a certain amount of years, it's an opportunity to impact local government. And they name certain parts of it: representation, equity, participation, accountability, accessibility. And they name those things on the visual. And they're saying like this process is much about you like engaging with said charter and offering some advice about adaptation. So I think like I don't know if we picked up on that question about like, can we do that as a part of our work in this subcommittee in terms of some form artifact that goes out to the community that continues to remind people that we're here and this is our work and this is what's coming.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that Meg, sorry, is there like a radio or something on?
Oh,
Right.
I'm sorry you can hear it. I
It's
have
okay.
my hearing.
Do you
It's-
mind, would you
no,
mind muting while you're not speaking?
Yes, it's Steve watching a basketball game in two
That's fine.
rooms away. I'll ask
That's
him to
fine.
turn it
Just for
down.
the sake of the recording too. So my sense from what you were just saying, Raphael, is um, creating a visual piece to solicit, like where are we directing people with that? Let's say we have a poster, a postcard, a flyer, whatever it is, that is inviting people to engage in the process, and we're sending them to just the generic feedback form, or are we waiting to run that process until we have a survey that's detailed and thoughtful? And I think either way is fine. I just think this is what we need to decide so we can just go run with something.
Yeah. I'm saying like while we wait for hopefully you're helping us with that survey, let's get all this other stuff like done. So it's ready to go when said survey is finished. Like
Okay.
that plotting and planning, I think we really need to like have those things produced, have clarity around timeline, where. Like I think that's the work we should be doing now.
Got it. Okay. So Meg, go ahead.
The basketball game is quieter now, but do you hear it right now?
No.
No.
Oh, good. I'm not sure I understand. I strongly supported what Raphael said a minute or two ago about accountability and engagement, accessibility. I'm not quite sure where we are with this. Are we saying we're not going to do any outreach events until we have the survey? Or are we going to, is that what we're saying?
What I understood, and Raphael, correct me if I'm misstating, is that Raphael's encouraging us and the larger committee to start developing the visual material that we would eventually send out even before we have the timeline on consulting with Collins and finalizing a survey, so that when it all comes together, it can kind of come together, not one piece at a time.
Okay,
That's what,
because I thought you had said earlier, Erica, that you thought we should, but I may have misunderstood, also for the notes or minutes, have some kind of event sooner than that to start to engage people. But that's not what we're talking. We're not going to have any, people are wondering what's happening and so on. I don't think we have to worry about people wondering what's happening. Most people don't even know we're here. So, but if we wait to do the survey before we have any public event at all or outreach, it probably won't be till May at least, because they're not starting until now.
I think it's
and-
a slightly separate question.
Okay,
Just, I'm just, what I'd like to come out of our meeting today with is a sort of sequence of events that we're going to take back to our larger group and say, this is what we're proposing. First this, then this, or simultaneously this, and that we attach some of those things to dates, even if nothing is locked in, that we have a sense of the sequence. And I think that's what the larger group needs from us. I think that's what we're interested in doing as a group, is getting something solid underway, without rushing ahead, but like having some solid thing that we're producing. So I'm hearing we could get started on producing some visual material.
Yeah.
That's then ready to drop a link in or whatever it is when we have a survey ready to go. That's piece one. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Another piece of work that we have to do is consult the Collins as to whether they can work with us on survey. I'm going to take up that piece. That's like 1A. I'm going to do that concurrently between this meeting and the next. The second big thing that we have to do is what Meg, where you were heading next, which is a kind of timeline of events. And we have to make some rough decisions and then some more concrete decisions. So rough decisions meaning do we want to organize a public event that has nothing to do with the survey, is just a public event like a listening session or some other sort of public tabling to inform people about where we are in the process, the fact that we exist and all of that? That's a yes, no, right? Like we can decide whether to do that before the survey exists or not. But regardless, then we can attach some dates to those public events, and we can decide to wait and say we're going to have an event every 3 weeks over the summer. Once the survey is in place, we can do whatever we want to with that proposal, but that's the thing we need to produce. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Meg, you're muted.
I'm sorry, Meg, go ahead.
One of the visuals won't be the thing I was proposing. We don't agree on that yet. I think the sort of description of the kind of changes that can be made. I'm happy not to.
But Meg, that's a piece for the survey. You were proposing that.
Oh, okay, you're
that
right. Got
for the
it.
survey
Yeah,
itself, right?
Got
And so
it.
I will take that to when we have
Right.
the conversation with Collins and so on about how to construct the survey. That will be part of it.
Right. Good. Sorry about that basketball game. We should
No,
have
it's
more.
okay.
We don't have any doors in our house.
That's fine.
So
Okay, so the timeline is something that we could work on and something that's on our agenda.
good.
But before I talk about like landing specific dates, there's those rough kind of sequencing questions that I raised, which is the committee has talked on various occasions, the larger committee has talked on various occasions about this abstract idea of a listening session.
Mhm.
I would like to hear from both of you as a public outreach activity, what that means to you and how you read its value as part of our public outreach process. Because it can mean very different things
Mhm.
to different people in different ways. And so I'd like to hear from you your thoughts on organizing a public listening session, whether or not the survey exists, separate from that timeline.
Go ahead.
My worry about it is that it draws the people who are already skillful at communicating their ideas. And it doesn't necessarily draw the people we've repeatedly, all of us at the larger committee and our committee said that we want to be sure we reach. On the other hand, it would be newsworthy and there would be an article in the paper and that might help. The outreach created by the fact that we did the listening session might help, but often those listening sessions, it's the same people.
Okay, so you're saying it may have some value in terms of raising the profile of our
Right.
review in the
I'm
town,
not,
but
right.
it may or may not attract people who are maybe already less in tune with what's happening.
Exactly.
Okay. Go ahead, Raphael.
I think it's just good to have a multi-pronged approach. So even for
It's a
those
what?
folks, a multi-pronged approach, like
Yeah,
I think we should definitely, even if it's folks who are engaged, I think, yeah, there's some assumptions there. Even if it's like 3 people who aren't usually in the
Mhm.
mix, to me, that's a win. That's a part of our work. So I think that should be in play. What I think matters though is like our process. Like how are we documenting what people share? Like what's the process? Who will facilitate? What does it look like? But I think we've talked about survey, but we have to have some other mechanisms in play. Listening session could be one of them that are launched, that are planned. I think we need to move towards that based on like the timeline and some ask in terms of report that we need to work on soon. Or if you think about the timeline that we agreed upon last whole group meeting. So for me, in terms of that listening session, yes, it should happen, but how and who matters.
Okay.
I agree.
What I think I agree as well. And would it be useful to talk for a few minutes right now about the who and how?
Yeah.
Because it is my feeling that this is an issue that as an outreach subcommittee we can give shape to, even if we
Yeah.
take input from the larger group, obviously, but we can give shape to and come in with a kind of proposal. That a listening session would have value if these sorts of things are in place, or if we go about it in this way.
I think while we wait for survey work to be done, it would be good to sort of do some planning around said listening session.
Yeah.
Determine like the where. We should be clear about like how we will facilitate it. I think it's good to have those materials that sort of will guide said listening sessions. We could think about like what we might focus on. Some listening sessions could focus on like how you're represented. Others could focus on like roles. So we'll need to sort of carve that out. And I think bringing forward like that specificity helps the whole group. And having some guidance for the facilitators might also be helpful. I think sometimes there's a tendency for folks in this role maybe to want to push and guide in particular directions, but I think this is about the whole charter. And I think we should be attentive to that in said listening sessions. And I don't think there should only be one. I think there should be multiple listening sessions. We should be clear about the what, the who, and there'll also have to be some consideration of advertising and getting the word out. Like what will be the plan around that?
Right. Meg?
I agree. I also think they should be in different parts of town.
Yeah.
We could start out with three, one at the Munson Library, one at the North Amherst Library, and one at Bangs, for example. The thing, I like your idea of different topics, Raphael, but if people, to deal with one topic, you have to go to South Amherst. To deal with another, you have to go to North. I don't know if we would want to have more generic listening sessions. I like the idea of specifics, but maybe at first we could have three that are in different parts of town, facilitated by someone who's not one of us. Maybe. And that would be, we'd learn some stuff that way, I think. What do you think, Erica?
I see the value of having different locations. I also see the value of having organized or organizing it around specific themes or questions that appear within the charter or within our conversations as a charter review committee, the things that we're inquiring about. You know, there's the potential for the locations to conflict or not overlap fully enough with the themes, but I think there's other mechanisms. So if these were the only ways we were getting input, I'd be more worried about that.
Right. Well, if we had three, what would the themes be, do you think? Let's just I mean, if we're going to make a proposal, three is a lot to organize for starters. What are you thinking themes would be? I like that idea of themes.
I think three is good because we are making available multiple opportunities for people to jump in different ways. So even though it's a lot to organize, themes, I think that I think regardless of how well we design the themes, people will want to talk about what they want to talk about, or will maybe be provoked to think about things to say about those themes, even if they came to say something different. So, it's a little bit best laid plans, and then it goes the way it goes. But I think the themes can be derived from specific subsections of the charter, and we don't have to stick to that religiously, but there are plenty of questions about what are the sort of the, not that we have to use this language, but the kind of centers of power that are laid out in the charter and how they play out in the town. That being
That's
the
a good one.
council, the town manager, and various the more powerful
good.
committees in the town. That's one piece.
That's a great one. Centers of power and how they play out. That'll draw people.
And this is not language that we would necessarily have to use. It's just one way of thinking about it. We don't have to stick to the letter of like section 3 in the charter describes X. It's not actually a constitutional law class that we're taking on a roadshow. Like we want people to talk about how the charter works in their lives. And so I think, like Raphael earlier, you said, how well do you feel represented, or do you feel represented by the current dynamics of the way the charter the way the charter allows for town council representation. These are very broad and need to be fleshed out. So I'm just talking kind of like the broadest possible headlines.
So a second theme that's very broad like that and quite different from centers of power and how they play out would be participation. And that would get at Raphael's question about representation. Do you know? And I don't have to, I think it's obvious. How knowledgeable are you? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Participation, maybe what would a third be?
Raphael, you had your hand up.
Sorry.
I think for me, like, we should touch on all the elements of the charter and this listening tour, communicated differently, but they're 10 articles. We could split. And I also think, to me, like, part of this process is also making people aware of said charter, making people or putting people in a position of actually reflecting and focusing on what's in it. So these sessions could also include that. So yes, we could like come up with the focus for each, but hopefully they focus on all elements or all the articles. So I don't think to do now, but I think like we have 3 and we want to focus on all the articles would be I would like that. I think that would be helpful. So Article 1 to 3 for the first, and you don't have to do this in your advertising, but the first part is about governing representation. Like you focus on that. The second part is about administrate. You could just break it down based on the articles, I think.
Right. Yeah. The thing is that some of the articles are really, I'll just be a devil's advocate, complicated the way they're written. They're in legalese.
So Meg,
what I like about the centers of power is that basically is the first 3 articles, the council, the legislative branch, the executive branch. But anyway, so I'm happy to just go through the whole charter article by article, or if I'm not sure that works anyway.
Okay. Raphael, go ahead and then I'll make my comment.
I'm not saying to go through it, Meg. I'm saying the focus of those sessions could deal with those articles. And here's what I don't want to do. Yes, it's in the release, but I think I want to trust that people could engage with the charter in the way that people in this committee can. So there are few people who are lawyers in this town. There might be a few, but I think if we just lean into like, how do we communicate Article 1, 2, and 3 in a way that would draw people in, and people come to the table knowing like this will be the focus. We don't have to use like legislative and executive branch. It could just be representation. And I think you want to have in play like for these listening sessions an opportunity for people just to reflect on what's in said charter and share their thoughts based on what's there.
I think I understand what you're getting at, that we follow more or less what's already in the charter in order to fully cover it and fully like engage people in all parts of it. That's a value that we're going to hold as we design these sessions, let's say.
Mhm.
And what strikes me right away is that in the spirit of um, engaging people fully, like really bringing them into a conversation and almost like having the experience be as informative as it is a kind of inquiry for us, for our purposes, is that we need to generate some materials.
Yeah.
I imagine at these listening sessions, we need to have this is the most basic thing I can think of, but like some slides up on a screen that are a kind of a very accessible
Mhm.
and simple description of what exists in the charter in order to solicit conversation. If we were going to have a meeting about, the shape of the town common, we would have a map of the town common um, as it was and it is proposed on the screen so that people could really have a look and talk about it. And similarly, if we're going to have a discussion about the question of representation as it's laid out in the charter, we need to have a sort of simplified map, so to speak, of the charter available um, as discussion material almost, and
Mhm.
not like we're lecturing. Not that
Right.
that's, if I have a 90-minute listening session planned, I'm not going to spend more than 10 or 15 sort of laying out some basic concepts that exist in the charter. This is what I'm imagining.
Mhm.
But that if we have something um, in the spirit of kind of equalizing an equalizing experience for everybody in the room, whether you've read the charter or not, you can engage in this conversation because I'm showing you exactly what's already there if you want to
Mhm.
have a refresher.
Yeah.
I can hear you. I'm gonna walk short distance and get my copy because I think we did that. I think there is a sentence summary of each chart. I'll be right, but I'll be listening, but I'll mute because I'll get closer to the.
Yeah, go ahead, Raphael,
Yeah,
please.
where are you all with the facilitation component? I think Meg shared that she would like someone else to do it. Where are you, Erica?
Um, I feel I could be talked into it, I guess, but I feel like this is something that our committee should do.
Okay.
I could be talked into having it be outside, but I feel like we're 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 bringing in consultants to help us with the structure and sequence and the sort of some of the procedural questions, but I don't necessarily think that we need to displace ourselves in the actual moment of content and conversation
Mhm.
with our neighbors. Um, I feel like it's part of our role. That's my
Yeah.
feeling.
I feel the same way. I'll let Meg share though.
Well, I agree with you now that I heard what you said. I got the,
Okay.
I, I'm just, I tend to way too hard in the making sure we're not biasing anything, but,
I think if we go into it with the spirit of what I'm suggesting, which is here's the charter, so to speak, and now we want to facilitate a conversation so
right.
that we can hear what you all have to say about it and be the
Uh-huh,
carriers of that sentiment to the ultimate
right,
reporting mechanism, whatever it ends up being. But
right.
go ahead, Raphael.
And to me, the facilitation is just like guiding, listening, just facilitating in that way. The piece that I think is trickier for members of this committee is the creation of said slides or helping folks to understand, I guess, what's in the charter in a concise and clear way. Maybe some of you feel like that's easy, but I think that's complex in terms of like, how do I sort of make this clear to a wide audience of folks? Maybe folks here feel like they're equipped at doing that, but I think that's tough.
It is,
think
I
for
think it
me,
is.
yeah,
No, I understand what you're saying, and I think I'm not sure. I feel more confident about the question of facilitation than I do about like who and how we create materials. I feel more convinced that we need something in
yeah,
that place, in that sort of neutral place that where a screen happens in a meeting,
yeah,
that we can all be looking at the same thing and commenting on it. So whether or not, one or more of us creates it, whether we ask for help with that, we have a communications office potentially to help us, we have Collins potentially to help us, I don't know. But I
yeah.
feel like there's a space here to sort of generate materials. There's a task that we can,
Mhm.
that would be productive.
Yeah, and if I follow that, I would say it would be great to get some assistance with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking at the charter, there are summary materials, but they're too much like making the case for it and arguing why it's better than what we had before. And it's also focusing to the summary sheets that I found like this are focusing too much on what changed from the government we had before, which is irrelevant for this conversation. I don't think we want to talk about, do you wish we had town meeting? Some people will maybe bring that up, but so the idea that summary of the articles exists, I take that back because it's not, the way it's presented is like making the case for a campaign to win it. Rather
Yeah.
than it's not neutral. This is, there's a whole page on what this charter accomplishes that the other government didn't do. So
Yeah, that's a little loaded.
that'll I can just see so forget it, I'm glad I looked though.
Okay, so um we've talked a little bit about the facilitation question. We've talked a little bit about the what, meaning we're going to approach it as a sort of breakdown of into three chunks that come directly from the content of the charter.
Mhm.
I'll just
Um,
say, I'll go along with that, but I prefer what we talked about before of themes, like one that cover the charter, but because I'm not sure, but I'll go along with it, but I'll just say I preferred the idea of the centers of power, which gets at the government and the legislative and executive branch and participation in a third one, but which we didn't discuss, but I'll go along with the proposal. We should have a lot of copies of the charter available, I guess, if that's how we're gonna do it, but I'll go along.
okay.
I'll abstain.
I think um, I think there can be themes.
Yeah.
I think I was just taking Raphael's point to heart, which is that we need to cover all of the parts of the charter, however we divide them up,
Absolutely.
thematic or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It needs to include all parts of that content. That's the spirit of which I was taking your comment. Maybe I'm wrong. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to reiterate that those themes, Meg, could come out of the article. So you look at 1, 2, and 3, what are the themes that we want folks to focus on?
Right.
That we do that work
Yeah.
or help with that work.
Okay. I like covering the whole charter, making sure it's all covered. I'm just slightly in favor. Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't break up the things that'll have, 3, 3, and 4. So but I'm happy to whatever we just agreed, although I'm just gonna blur my background a little here. We could, you'll see my notes and see if I captured it. I
Okay.
agree, we want to cover all parts of the charter and whether we divide it by themes or going through the articles, 1 through 3, 4 through 7, or whatever, we can decide.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is better.
Raphael, you had a comment?
No, that's fine. I think we're
Okay. I think we're basically in agreement.
Yeah,
I think we need to, it's my opinion that we need to sort of draft up a proposal to this effect and bring it to the larger committee for a motion and a vote.
Yeah.
And my question to you right now is, do we want to do the work to look at a calendar and pick some dates? Because that's the next thing that's going to be asked. And we could get ahead of it by discussing it right now. And again, make that part of the proposal, even if the committee decides that the date for the second one is not good because whatever. we have something to start from.
I think we should.
Okay,
Me too.
great. I'm going to put up this draft of a calendar, which again, I will, once we've done this work, I will put it in as part of our packet or whatever, so it's public. Share.
Great. Thank you for doing that, Erica.
Yeah, it's again, just for the sake of the record, it's just a working document.
Oh, yeah.
So the section we want to focus on, right, is what is this here, this, well, hang on, it's not responding to me. I'm gonna take it down for a minute. Refresh that page, hang on.
I'll just say while you're doing that, one of the whole articles is just a page and a half, and it's on administrative organization. Very boring.
Oh,
The town agencies.
To you, Meg, but who knows?
Yeah, right. Well, you're a lawyer. It's probably really interesting. You know, principles and appointing and promotions. I mean, that's this, I blurred my background. It doesn't work. I'll de-blur it. But anyway, right, that's true. And the Board of Licensed Commissioners shall consist, blah, blah, blah. Anyway. Although it's good for people to know this. Great.
all right, sorry about the delay. Trying again. Okay, so the part I wanted to focus us on is the public sessions. As I was explaining in the other committee, I was giving us a sort of ramp up to do the planning, generate materials or whatever else we need to do to publicize it, meaning give it to our communications office with enough time to help us get the word out, including visual materials. An event date that's in pink, and then some time afterwards to compile our notes and make them make sense in whatever way. And that's a piece we haven't talked about, is how we're capturing the sentiment or the information that we gather, the comments, etc., in the room.
Yeah.
So in this part of our conversation, we can talk about that. There's a facilitation piece, and there's also a kind of recording piece. And also we need to talk about dates.
Great.
So I had proposed, just to start somewhere, events starting at, every couple of weeks here, starting at the kind of tail end of April and into mid-May.
Looks good.
Yeah, thoughts, pros, cons, or, potential conflicts or reasons to wait, reasons to hurry up, or otherwise.
I can't recall. When did we say like midpoint report is being done? Does anyone here remember?
That's a great question. Let me see.
Yeah.
We said a preliminary May 31st.
Okay.
And that's why I had left it so that this third listening session, such as it is, I put kind of like in the mid to late May, so that the reporting out from that, there would still be time to include it in a preliminary report.
So Erica, you were saying that we had 3 reports. May 31st is the first report or the second?
May 31st is the first one.
Okay.
The very preliminary report, like there's just sort of status report of what have we been doing.
Yeah. And the second report is when?
The intermediate report, August 31st.
31st.
And then
So
the final one, what, end of November?
The final
Wow.
November, yeah.
So to me, like these listening sessions, it'd be great if they happen. You said August 31st, the midpoint report. Like, what did you say for the intermediate report?
Yeah,
August what?
31st.
31st. So it'd be great if they happen before then. Um, in terms of like first listening session, what are folks thinking?
Like for when?
Yeah, for when?
You mean which part of the week or which day or?
No, just when do we launch?
Well, it looks like we would schedule it for the last week of April.
This is a proposal.
Yeah,
And
I like, but
the proposal is that the first one would be late April.
Okay.
Which would, again, backtracking, realistically, that means we would start planning it right away.
Yeah.
Again, all of this can slide forward and they don't have to be a couple weeks apart, but it does generate momentum to have them close together.
yeah,
Because if you miss one, you know there's another one 2 weeks later.
right.
But
I think that's important. So this is the spring listening session. It's not, I think
That's
it's
right.
great. I like it.
and to your point, Meg, there is the potential to repeat or add listening sessions over the summer if they go successfully or
Yeah.
unsuccessfully, depending how you look at that. They, you know, they can be repeated or changed
Mhm.
up or done in a different way. Yeah. I just want to
Right.
add to the conversation that what I
Mm.
learned from Samantha in our larger meeting is the idea of the many town events that happen in April and May
Yeah.
that we could sort of tag onto in various ways, like either tabling or publicizing. That also helps with our public
Yeah.
visibility and with some momentum around the questions that we're asking people to engage in. Go ahead, Meg.
My experience with tabling, I didn't want to say this, but is that people don't stop at the tables if they don't have a reason. It's very hard to have real conversations with anybody, especially about, I did tabling with Angela last year at a big event about trying to get people to put their names in to be on committees. And these events, especially if it's something like a fair or a party and there's food and kids running around, there's minimal quality to the contact. It happens, but it's not the first place I said I would go to it, but
Yeah, I just to clarify, what I understood Samantha was saying was that you can use a tabling event to publicize it, not that that's
yes,
the place of or is even remotely
right,
close to a listening session. But okay,
right.
go ahead, Raphael.
And I'm gonna say, Meg, just keeping in mind, like I think we should really focus on multiple ways of getting.
Yeah,
We could talk about those tabling sessions, but I think like right now, in terms of like moving forward, let's finalize our proposal around listening sessions. I think
yep,
we need to talk about how we'll capture what is shared. But if it were, would it be useful to have listening sessions in April, May, and June? Because I'm just thinking about the committee's capacity and who's facilitating. I don't know if you all think it should be one or multiple folks at these sessions. Like those are the things I think it would be great to sort of iron out.
Yeah,
I agree with you. But it won't take forever to do that. I think it's a great idea to start. Maybe we should discuss those things now.
Yeah, I think we could. Go ahead.
I think that the for me, the pros and cons of going April, May, June, which I think has a
Mhm.
lot of pros because it's sort of like lets us work out the kinks of this idea and really get it so that we go in to our first event really prepared. So that's the pro of like waiting and sort of pushing everything back a little bit. The con would be if our third one is in June, it doesn't get included in the May report. But that's, I don't know, that doesn't,
Yeah.
it's not a big con because there will be a substantive stuff to report out on in the May report anyway, without the third one.
And my thinking, Erica, is the May report is much about like where we are. Certainly there could be some sort of review of what we've collected, but I think the important sort of we've reviewed all of this stuff based on all this information we collected in this from this plan is the August 31st report. So I think I think it's okay.
Okay.
In terms of like, here's the plan, here's what we collected. We plan to continue this moving forward.
That
Just
makes
to
sense.
get some stuff out there to the community in terms of where we are.
That makes sense to me. Meg, you have a comment?
Just the people in Amherst start disappearing by the end of May. Especially people associated with the schools, but there's still some people are around. If there's any way we could do it before the end of May, that would have the advantage of getting more people, but maybe not. I'm easy.
But I want go ahead, Erica.
I was going to say, I think if by splitting the difference, right, we're not going to capture everybody, and we don't want to lose momentum, and we don't want to overshoot, and we can always repeat this if it actually ends up being a successful process. There's no reason to add why we couldn't add a 4th and 5th in July. But I think if I'm splitting the difference between what we're saying, that perhaps, putting just as a model here, if we put this one in June and move this one down just a bit a little further into May, perhaps that's like a more rational way to start and gives us a little self-correcting time in between each one. If one doesn't go well, or we think of ideas to make the next one better, it also gives us a little bit more lead time to do that kind of cleanup.
Great.
Raphael?
I just want to say, like, it's important. This is just one way, so we're not going to capture everyone. It's in play, but this committee, the whole committee, should be thinking about a plethora of ways to get engagement from a wide range of folks. So even those folks that leave, Meg, like there should be mechanisms in play that allow them to sort of contribute, even if they're not in town. A survey could be that.
Sure. Yep.
There are no 3 dates that would capture everyone in town or
no.
Right. And I'm saying something obvious, but so we pick what's kind of the best the best array that we can for now.
Good. So I'm noting in the notes there'd be late May, mid-May, and mid-June.
I have late April here.
Oh, I wrote late April. I just read the wrong. Yeah, late April, mid-May, and mid-June.
Does that work for us? I can actually, let me move this one down 1 week.
I like having the one in April so we get started on it and it gives us some practice.
Yeah.
I think in terms of mapping, like I know there's a mid-May, mid-June might work, but I think it's good this committee's juggling a lot. So just something to think about. We meet bi-weekly. There's this subcommittee group. The facilitation will be in play. You want to think about committee capacity too.
I'm going to move this down 1 week and just see what that does to our plan.
Early May, okay. I think just
it
on
gives
that.
us the entire month of April and part of March to work on all of those things.
Okay.
Generate materials, do some publicity, work out the specifics of what is included in each one. We can always revise this. This is, like I said, this is a proposal.
Yeah.
Even if we or the larger committee decide in discussion before we vote that this feels too fast or too slow in whatever ways, we have something to adjust from, but I'm going to put it in as a proposal.
Great.
If we have a minute to talk about facilitation, I think
Yeah.
there should be two people facilitating from our group, not one.
Makes
In
sense to
each session?
Each session, maybe two different people, but it's puts too much pressure on one person, and often another will notice, people will notice different things in the room, or you can even, I've seen people divide the roles, so one's more process watcher and another's actually facilitate. I don't think we need to go that far, but I recommend two of our committee, not just one.
Okay. Raphael, did you have a comment about that?
Sounds good. I think grappling with like how we'll document and collect what's shared. Could we move to that? I'm looking at the
Yeah.
clock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mm.
So the obvious things are taking notes, recording video and audio, recording just audio, right? These are the most obvious things.
Mhm.
How those, what the technical limitations are of all those things and how that impacts facilitation and participation are the things that I think we want to
Yeah.
sort out.
There's
Meg?
there's another factor too, which we may not have time to discuss, but the League of Women Voters, for example, when they have public hearings, there's questions, people have to write their question or comment on a piece of paper, that somebody reads it, as opposed to a mic. I think we want people to be able to speak directly when they come to a meeting, not to have to write it out, but the whole point of speaking in a listening session is to make it easy. So we would have a mic somewhere, and maybe another person who walks around with the mic. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think you can just,
I'm just writing it down.
yeah.
My vote would be to audio record.
Audio record.
Yeah.
Audio record.
How do others feel?
It's fine.
I think that audio recording takes away the self-consciousness of people feeling like their image is being recorded. And
Yeah.
it again splits the difference so that we have material to work with, and we free up whoever's facilitating to not have to be furiously scribbling and maybe missing things.
So that's all the more reason to be sure that the microphone is close to the person and they're speaking into it. In other words, somebody gets the mic to them, because
So
sometimes people stand up and start yelling.
I'm gonna make go ahead, Raphael.
I was gonna say maybe we should propose. I don't know if you all want to be a part of the first listening session, since we're proposing it, and seems like there's a fair amount of work to do in terms of like getting materials produced, thinking about facilitation process. That would be my sort of ask. We take on the first listening tour.
This
Or
group.
sessions.
You're
This
saying
group.
this group.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a fair proposal.
Yeah.
A fair thing to include in the proposal for the first one.
Yeah.
I'm just making a note of that. The other piece that we might want to include in the proposal is that, and I can do this piece, is to reach out to Samantha or others to help us do the kind of AV that will be required in order to have audio recording and a roving microphone so that everyone's voice is captured well. We'll need town support for that.
In terms of like booking those spaces, process, thoughts, who's charged with that? We don't have to determine it now, but just on the radar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing that, but we need to decide whether this is on a Thursday night or a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Those are the two common times. Oh, town things are often on a weeknight,
Yeah.
but
I would propose that when we think about the set of three, if I'm
Uh-huh.
still thinking of them as a set of three for now, listening
Yeah.
sessions. We're gonna focus our planning on the first, but that over the three, we offer like a weeknight, a weekend,
that's a good idea.
and so that, you know, it offers lots of different kinds of people with different kinds of
Mhm.
schedules to be available.
Great.
Raphael?
So Erica, do you think you have enough for this proposal? Because we have a few things on our agenda to address. Do we want to
I
force?
do. I do think I have enough for this proposal, and I'm going to write it up as best I can for so that it gets in the packet for the next group meeting. But
Right.
I just wanted to say that um, our next piece of work as an outreach committee planning a listening session is going to have to be the deciding on the themes, the content of that first session. Not proposing we do that tonight, but that I think we will have to decide that, and the larger committee may want to have input on that.
Makes
Mhm.
sense.
So, okay, so where we are is we're going to put together a proposal based on our whole discussion we just had about designing and implementing 3 listening sessions over the course of April, May, June, with all the details that we discussed. I'll write this up to for the larger committee to vote on. Now, we had a lot of other things to talk about with regard to, in particular, the interview protocol, which I want to come back to in just one second. But item 6 was the venues list. And the thing that I wanted to say about that is that I heard Samantha say that she could very much support us with the creation of that list of like emails and places to send
Mhm.
materials to. So I would really like to lean on her for that and to,
Mhm.
right, it's a lot of work for us to collect. It's been difficult for people to pull that stuff together. So I'd like to,
Nobody's got back to me except
well, I'd
Bernie.
like to, maybe people are collecting and don't have a complete list. I don't know, but let's just say I would like to lean on the communications office who is in the business of doing that sort of thing already, as opposed to reinventing what may already exist somewhere in Samantha's files.
Do you want me to meet with her, which probably might not be for 2 weeks, but to see what she has? Because I had the impression that, well, we're finding new stuff out all the time, like, but I won't go into it now because we don't have time, but,
Yeah.
or how do we want to talk with her about what she does and doesn't have?
I think if you can outreach to her and
I could try tomorrow.
you could put together an email even that says
Yeah.
this is what we started, but we'd love your support with a list of venues. Does this
Okay,
overlap with yours? Could we meet about it when I'm back?
great. And
Something
I turned it into a spreadsheet with a lot of different categories. I'll just say this in one sentence, like who's in charge, what we found out, additional notes. So if she has it, I can put her stuff in there or give ours to her or
right.
cross it off of our list because she has it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll send her an email, copy you too.
I think I don't know if you can copy us. Maybe
Oh,
this could just be delegated to you to pursue and
okay,
then report back to us.
okay.
Okay, so this issue with the interview protocol, um, uh, I was confused at the end of our meeting of whether this is actually something for the outreach committee to take up, because it was originally Bernie's proposal to the whole committee that we sort of divide and conquer um, on the town officials to be interviewed. Obviously, we talked about a lot of different methodologies and sort of best practices for conducting interviews. I didn't feel like we landed anywhere, but I also was confused about whether that was being left to us as an outreach subcommittee to do, because technically our purview here is public outreach, which is a little bit different than um, the means and methods for interviewing town elected officials. But I'll take your thoughts, Raphael.
So I don't think we came to an agreement. As you know, there was a lot of talk about how to approach it. I think we could perhaps share our thoughts about where we land with interview protocol and approach. But it's on the agenda moving forward. I do want to share though, like can I share my screen?
Yes, please.
So there are places that have same work. Can you folks see Cambridge's?
Mm-hmm.
They have their community engagement interviews posted, shared. I think and the protocol's pretty it's it's the same for all these folks. And I just think like I wasn't sure where people were in terms of like issues with like documenting it. I just had I want to know where you all are with like how we should approach this.
Meg.
I had a different experience. We went around and around about how to document the interviews, and someone said, "It was you, Erica. Why don't we have them fill out the form themselves?" And then Bernie said, "I think Erica has solved our problem, as she so often does," or something like that. So I thought, I thought actually we didn't call for consensus, but I thought there was agreement about that, or at least informal. And the thing you just showed, Raphael, suggests that that's what Cambridge did. It be
It
interesting
appeared
to
be
know
the second page you shared.
who filled those out, because and I actually didn't hear them delegate it to us. It did end bad. It ended in a kerfluffle and it wasn't clear, but I thought people liked your suggestion, Erica, that we have them fill out we wouldn't even have to interview them then at all.
Well, I will say, I thought the discussion was unexpected to me, but I thought the discussion was really interesting and productive, but we didn't land anywhere. But what came out of it was all of the pros and cons of what's valuable about having a face-to-face interview, what's problematic about relying on people to just write it down based on their assessment versus what is, I don't know, what feels vulnerable to people about recording it to be part of the record. All of those questions are what came up. I'm not 100% sure that it's the solution. I know that's what Bernie said, but what I was trying to get across was that if you have a written kind of questionnaire that's well crafted and you distribute the same thing to everyone you want to formally interview, not just a public engagement, but a formal interview of a person who holds a town office of some kind, that you kind of knock out the question of bias because there's no interviewer.
Right.
There's bias perhaps in the formation of the question, but that's a whole other thing.
Right.
There's no bias in the encounter, and there's no question about whether people's actual words are being recorded accurately, or whether they're performing.
Right.
People, of course, people when they have a questionnaire will take time to craft an answer. I'm not convinced that's a bad thing. Not doing gotcha journalism. We're doing,
You want to know?
based on your experience as a former town council, what do you think? So that sometimes takes some thinking and not just a casual chat over coffee. So that's the advantage of doing a written questionnaire, that, it also takes an enormous load of work off of the committee, because it takes time to coordinate, set up, plan, transcribe, etc. when you're doing one-on-one, face-to-face interviews. That was my thought. Go ahead, Raphael.
Yeah, I think in terms of like what we bring to the whole committee, perhaps what you propose should be a part of what we share. I wouldn't mind doing it in that way. Maybe we could engage the Collins Center in terms of what this questionnaire might look like. But there are a lot of questionnaires out there in this
Yeah.
process that we could utilize too.
Yeah.
That we could draw from, at least a
Yeah.
draft of some kind.
Yeah. But I
And
also
also,
feel like
sorry.
coming up with a timeline for this might also be helpful.
Mhm.
Like
It also can be a, sorry.
when do we get this stuff out there? I think
Yeah.
that helps the whole committee too.
Yeah.
It's also a
Um,
starter thing, because we can go back and say, when you said this, you know, and it'll maybe encourage some dialogue back and forth among the different town officials. I think it's a great idea.
Um,
It's not the
okay,
last
so,
thing. It's not the only chance they get to speak.
right.
I'd
And
love to
also,
have the link to that.
let's just remember that our town officials are also residents and can participate in a survey above and beyond whatever
Right.
they're asked to answer in a questionnaire from their role.
Yeah.
So if we're proposing something as a subcommittee around this, uh, are we saying we're proposing a written, like we discussed it and we're proposing that a written questionnaire for these two groups, town officials and town staff, are going to be conducted via a written questionnaire, perhaps with Colin's support, but that's something that we can draft ourselves.
Mhm.
Did you want to say anything about a timeline, Raphael?
Yeah, we should think about the timeline in terms of like, when do we want these to go out?
Can I?
Similar to what we did with the listening tour, listening session.
Yeah, I
Like,
agree.
what would we want to target in terms of timeline?
So can I am aware that we're at 8 o'clock and that's usually our close time, but if we could take 3 minutes to look at the calendar again.
Sure.
So originally I had put in this elected officials and town staff outreach as a kind of ongoing process because of the way we were talking about doing it, as just a kind of everyone schedule your own interviews with your own subgroup of officials. But if we're doing written questionnaire style information collection, then I think we need to have a different kind of timeline around this
Mhm.
that looks a little bit more like like an event plan
Yeah.
where we prepare the materials, revise the materials, send out the questionnaire, and then do the work to kind of nudge people to get it back.
Yeah.
Mhm. Raphael, could you send that survey from Cambridge? I'm just curious.
I'll share they have a lot of their materials online. I could share it.
Oh, I'll just go. I can probably find it.
Yeah, you can find it. If you just go to Cambridge Charter Review Commission, you'll find a lot of their material.
Okay, because it might be they might have come up with a good set of questions.
Yeah, we do.
I believe that early on in one of our meeting packets, I think maybe Dan or Andy uploaded some other towns' charter reviews that might be included. So you might want to go back to our first few meetings packets and see if you can find it there. Okay, so if we were going to say a kind of launch date, a mail out date for a final written questionnaire to everyone, what's a realistic and or aspirational date for that?
Well, they're probably going to expect us to come up with a questionnaire, right?
I think what we're saying is we are going to draft a questionnaire, we being, I don't know, the committee. That input can probably come from multiple places, not just our subcommittee.
Mhm.
I think we have to discuss that as a group.
Yeah.
But if we're just talking about timelines so that we can propose it, I would think, this is just my kind of initial dart thrown at the wall here, that if we can target like end of April.
Great.
Yeah, that's fine.
Does that sound about right?
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay. And that means that we can structure our work over the course of March and April to draft, revise, and finalize both the materials and the list of people. And we have plenty of other stuff to do, so it would simplify quite a bit. Does this have any other kind of unintended consequences that I'm not thinking of? Like somewhere mid-May, I suspect we'll have to do some outreach work to get people to return those questionnaires.
Mhm. I
We'll have
suggest,
to,
go ahead.
go ahead.
No, we should all look at what Mandy Jo apparently already wrote one.
Yes.
That might give us some clues.
Ooh, it'd be great to have some conversations about how these will be shared with whom.
Yeah.
So those things are in play too.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that we should include in this sort of proposal before we bring it back to our larger group?
What else was on the agenda?
Well, I mean, on our agenda, I just had written town officials interview protocol, tools and process proposal. So the question about tools was when we were having the conversation about, are we recording and transcribing?
Mm-hmm.
If we're actually proposing written questionnaires, I don't think we have to talk about tools at this time.
Good. I thought it was a genius idea that you had.
The written word.
Anything else on the agenda?
I don't think so. We had the question of approval of minutes. Meg, you're going to do your best with tonight's. I'm going to look back
Yep.
to previous meeting. Raphael, you'll look back 2 meetings, and then we'll try to put meeting minutes approvals on our next agenda.
Okay. So my
We're out for
participation
2
at the
weeks. Yeah.
my participation in 2 weeks is, I'll have to let you know, it's 11:30 at night when this starts, which I might be back from the play. We have play tickets that night, but I should be back, but I might be, I don't know. I'll let you know.
Okay. Any other?
I do think moving forward, we talked about listening sessions tonight. Folks have talked about surveys, questionnaire. We should think about other ways of engaging. What else could be on the table?
Yeah.
I
So
agree. I don't feel limited by this, but I feel activated by the fact that we're making some concrete plans.
Yeah.
So I think I feel really open to whatever ideas come forth from this group or the larger group about what other kinds of outreach can we do.
Yeah. Let's put that Raphael's idea on our next agenda.
Yeah.
Because this process can tend to be limiting, like which day, which week, how much time between this and that. And to have one conversation where we're expanding our thinking would be a good balance.
But I think in preparation for a deeper dive into that, we should perhaps like open it up to the whole committee to perhaps what are some other ideas that you all are
That's a
thinking?
great idea. That's a great idea.
Okay.
Love that idea.
All right. Wrote that down too. Thank you all so much for all the input. Is there any topic not anticipated that we didn't get to?
Sleep.
Noted. Second the motion. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And I'll
All right.
second.
All right.
Oh, wait, I gotta write this down.
Thank you all.
All right, thanks. Have a good night.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Raphael. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.